Welcome inside University of Phoenix Stadium after Super Bowl 49. To say it was a classic would be a vast understatement. I'm Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. The Patriots win their fourth Super Bowl title in perhaps the most dramatic fashion of all, and certainly the most unexpected fashion of all, 28-24. They stave off the Seattle Seahawks here in the Valley of the Sun. Chris, I don't know what to say about the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game we watched, and certainly the Malcolm Butler interception at the goal line when the Seahawks had it at the 1. Everybody and their brother thinks, yep, beast mode's going to get the ball, he's going to run it in, and the Patriots are going to have less than 30 seconds to try and get a field goal. Malcolm Butler to the rescue.
Malcolm Butler made the big play at the right time. An undrafted free agent out of West Alabama, the first West Alabama guy to play in the National Football League, a guy who just barely made the roster by the skin of his teeth. We talked all year about how good quarterbacks were able to test the Patriots' depth of their secondary, specifically in the cornerback position, and at the right time, at the biggest moment of the year, one of those guys, one of those cornerbacks, Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, those guys at the back end of the depth chart, Butler comes up with a big play at the right time.
You know, and the irony of it is, Chris, that all season the Patriots secondary had been outstanding in really preventing the big play. That was not the case from the second quarter on in this game. They gave up a couple of 45-yarders to Chris Matthews. Kearse had that unbelievable catch and late in on the final drive, and everybody is thinking when he bobbles that ball lying on his back and he catches the ball, here we go again in the same building that David Tyree happened, and just 3 years after Mario Manningham in Indianapolis, here we go again.
Well, one of the owners, Jonathan Kraft, was just in there talking about how it reminded him of David Tyree on steroids, talking about the situation. You could really make a lot of comparisons. This Super Bowl, for me, if you're a Patriots fan, you can make a lot of comparisons to Super Bowl 38. Right. The Carolina Panthers game, where the last 4 or 5 minutes, it was like a novel, where all these unbelievable twists and turns, the momentum swings back and forth, Tom Brady putting together a legacy-defining drive in a lot of ways. Julian Edelman with an absolutely gutty performance to get into the end zone after getting knocked around and clearly getting dinged up. And defensively making the stand in the shadow of their own goal line. And Malcolm Butler, of all people, coming away making the play. We talked all year about Brandon Browner and Darrelle Revis and guys like Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower, undrafted free agent, making the biggest play at the biggest possible time. Great story about that. Jimmy Garoppolo told me in the locker room after the game that the scout team beat Malcolm Butler with that same play over the course of the week in practice. He steps up and makes the big plays right now.
And it's funny you say that, Chris, because after the game, I was talking to Malcolm Butler, and he said that was a double stack route, and that's what told me what was up. And it was because of the play in practice and the work that they did in practice. He knew what to expect. Once he saw the double stack from the Seattle receivers, it was all instinct, he said, and certainly the Patriots are glad that he played his instinct the way he was taught. Now let's move on to number 12. He is, of course, the Super Bowl MVP, Tom Brady, for the third time in his career. Just a remarkable, resilient effort by Tom Brady, who threw an interception at the goal line to start this game, and you're going, Tom Brady's forcing it again. He comes back and throws 4 touchdowns in this Super Bowl. He becomes the all-time leader in touchdowns in Super Bowls, passing Joe Montana. He's now got 14. The effort of Tom Brady down 10 in the fourth quarter was Brady of old.
You had the great stat that Brady and Belichick have never been behind by 10 points in a Super Bowl going into tonight. The 10-point deficit against this Seattle defense, right. You have to throw the ball to get back in the game. You're going up against one of the best secondaries in the league. The way they move the ball down the field, converting on third down, hitting guys like Vereen, hitting guys like Amendola, hitting guys like Edelman, who had an unbelievable night. I can't stress that enough. They were able to contain Gronkowski, and they did a really good job containing Gronkowski, but it was the smaller guys who were able to get separation, the slightest bit of separation, using those pick plays, using those rub routes, and Brady was able to find them. Brady was able to find Amendola, was able to move the chains. The rushing game was just good enough to keep the fear of play action in the back of their minds. A couple of those touchdown passes came as a result of some nice play fakes to LeGarrette Blount, but it was the passing game that was able to carry this team. It was Tom Brady particularly who was able to carry this team tonight.
Okay, you're writing about this on WEEI.com, Chris. Greatest quarterback of all time?
It's got to be Brady at this point. I'm trying to think of, and I was talking with some colleagues in the media room earlier, trying to think of, kind of trying to play devil's advocate here when you're talking about the possibility of naming Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time. And look, you have to count those 2 losses against him. Those go on his resume. Those are undeniable. But when you look at the breadth of his career, what he's been able to do, getting to 6 Super Bowls, no other quarterback has done that.
Right.
Winning 4, tying Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw. And then for me, the difference maker is the fact that he won Super Bowls 13 years apart. No one has ever done that. It's a whole 52 different guys in that locker room than the group of guys that were there for Super Bowl 36. I think the separation between the 2 Super Bowls for me is what makes him the best of all time.
And also now, Tom Brady becomes the first quarterback in history to win Super Bowls 10 years apart. Since his last one, obviously, 10 years ago this month, they had to hold off the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 39 in Jacksonville. Tom Brady comes back and wins this game. Brady Belichick now. That discussion goes, are they in the pantheon of the greatest quarterback head coach of all time? Bill Belichick wins his 4th Super Bowl, tying Chuck Noll as the only other coach to accomplish that feat, and Tom Brady joining Terry Bradshaw and, of course, his boyhood idol Joe Montana with 4 Super Bowls.
I think you can make a real argument now when you look at the Brady-Belichick combination, what they've been able to do. I would argue that they're almost straddling eras. 13 years ago, that was a long time. 2002, it was a different ballgame back then. Not dramatically different, but things were different, rules were different. And I think the fact that they are really the first combination to win Super Bowls, arguably in 2 different eras. You're looking at 2002 and 2015. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to do that ever again, to have that kind of separation. When you look at, again, the breadth of the work, the resume that the 2 of them have put together, I don't know how you can't put them in the conversation as the greatest combination of all time.
I think that drive that Brady had to get them the lead in this Super Bowl, that also goes down as one of the great drives he's ever had. The pass he made to Gronkowski on the seam route was laser perfect. It had to be because Gronkowski was in full stride heading downfield.
That, for me, the drive we saw tonight in the 4th quarter to put them up for good in this game, that parallels, there's a lot of parallels there to what he did 13 years ago in the 4th quarter against the Rams in New Orleans. And I think it's a nice career arc. When you look at what he did in 2002 to win Super Bowl 36, put that drive together at the very end of the game, and then put this 4th quarter drive on top of that, those are 2 very nice, well-partnered drives, I guess I should say. That's the best phrase that I can think of. But you can't help but flash back to that moment, to that game, and then look ahead to this game and see what he's been able to do over the course of his career. It's very impressive.
Well, the New England Patriots really put the capper on one of the most improbable seasons I think they have really ever had. They were 2-2, and like they were, and you've mentioned this before, Chris, they were 2-2 in 2003, ran the table. That was a different team. This team had a lot more adversity in that 2-2 early on, and for them to really get their act together on both sides of the ball, the offensive line coming together, guys like Brandon Browner and Darrelle Revis really fortifying the secondary, and the Patriots finding ways to win tight games that they couldn't early in the season. It just puts a wonderful cap on the season. The Patriots win their 4th Super Bowl in franchise history, becoming the first team ever to wipe out a 10-point 4th quarter deficit, beating defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks by a score of 28-24. It's been a wonderful year, Chris. I think that goes without saying. Any final thoughts? Any great memories?
I really, for me, and I'm glad you bring that up. We talked about this before. This year, for me, there are a lot of parallels to the 2003 season. The way they were able to overcome adversity, the way they were able to kind of get their act together. They lost a key veteran, a key locker room guy at the start of the year. They kind of fumbled around a little bit and kind of struggled to find themselves. They were able to find an identity. They were able to come together. This is a very impressive team. This is a very impressive NFL champion. This is, to see this team be able to cash in like this after a very difficult year. It's a tremendous story.
And a lot of tears and a lot of laughter in that locker room and in the press conference area and the staging area behind us after the game. Again, a well-earned Super Bowl championship for the New England Patriots. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 28-24 here at University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale. He is Christopher Price. I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.